I want you to close your eyes for a second. Just picture something with me. Imagine you're back in the early 1900s.
Okay.
You're traveling along a major highway in Burma, and this is not a pleasant road trip. The sun is scorching hot, just beating down. The dust is kicking up into your eyes.
Oh.
The noise is overwhelming, ox carts screeching, travelers shouting, just the sheer chaos of it all. Your feet are aching, you're thirsty, you are just completely exhausted.
That is a visceral image. And honestly, even though we aren't, walking on dusty roads in Burma,
Right.
I think anyone commuting in a major city or navigating a high-pressure career today feels that exact same sensation. The noise, the heat, the exhaustion.
Exactly. It feels so metaphorical now.
Yeah.
But in this scene, just off to the side of this chaotic road under a cool, shaded grove of trees, you spot this humble wooden structure.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a palace. It's not a fortress. It's a simple shelter called a rest house. And it's built there for one reason. So the weary traveler can step off the road, wash the dust off, get some water, and just sit in the shade until they're ready to walk again.
And that rest house is the central metaphor for the book we're exploring today. It's called Byways to Blessedness, written by James Allen in 1904.
We've covered Allen before. He's the guy who wrote As a Man Thinketh. But this book feels different.
Yeah.
It feels more like a prescription for burnout.
It absolutely is. Allen is contrasting two things here. He talks about the highway, which is that dusty road.
There's chaos.
The chaos, the rush of life, the ambition, the passion, the desperate need to get somewhere and be someone. And then there are the byways.
The byways.
These are the overlooked side paths of wisdom. They look quiet, maybe even boring to the ambitious eye. But Allen argues that we keep fainting on the highway because we ignore these byways.
Yeah.
He claims these small, seemingly insignificant mental shifts are actually the only true source of happiness.
So our mission for this deep dive is to step off the highway.
Yeah.
If you are feeling overwhelmed or if you feel like you're just running on a treadmill that never stops,
Yeah.
this conversation is your rest house. We're not going to talk about moving to a mountaintop or quitting your job. We're going to explore how to change the way you view the very small things right in front of you.
And I should warn you, or maybe the listener, James Allen is a strict teacher. He doesn't offer life hacks.
Right.
He offers laws. He believes happiness is a matter of strict cause and effect, just like physics.
That's a perfect setup. Let's walk down the first byway he describes, the science of beginnings.
This is a foundational chapter. He calls it Right Beginnings. And the core insight here is, well, it's brutally simple. A beginning is a cause.
A beginning is a cause. Okay, let's unpack that. Because I think most of us view the beginning of the day as just, I don't know, the murky time before the coffee kicks in.
Right.
We don't think of it as a cause.
Right, but Allen treats life like a chain. Every link pulls the next one. He uses this beautiful analogy of a gardener. A smart gardener doesn't just walk out and throw seeds in the mud whenever they feel like it. They study the soil, they wait for the right season, they select the specific seed. They know that the moment of planting dictates the harvest.
You can't plant thistles in the morning and hope to harvest roses in the evening.
Exactly. But we don't do that with our days, do we? I mean, usually I wake up in a totally reactive state. The alarm goes off, I'm already annoyed, I check my phone, I see a stressful email.
And you're off to the races.
Exactly. And Allen argues that this initial mental state isn't just a rough start, it is a cause. It sets a chain reaction in motion.
Okay.
If you plant a seed of haste or dread or irritation at 7 a.m., that seed grows. It colors your interactions at 10 a.m., which affects your decisions at noon. Allen says the body results for your entire day is the effect of that one small but comprehensive cause.
So if I wake up and immediately start worrying about a meeting I have at 4 p.m., Allen would say I've already poisoned the outcome of the day.
Essentially, yes. He says, the best crops gladden the soul of him who makes the best beginning. If the seed is anxiety, the fruit cannot be peace. It's physically and spiritually impossible in his framework.
You can't get a happy ending to the day from a miserable beginning.
You just can't.
That sounds a bit deterministic, though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, if I spill my coffee at 8 a.m., am I doomed? Can't I just turn it around after lunch?
You can, certainly. But Allen would say you're now fighting the momentum you created. You're fighting the weed you planted.
Ah, I see.
His point is about efficiency. Why fight the weed all day when you could have just not planted the seed in the first place? He wants us to be proactive architects of our day rather than reactive firefighters.
So practically speaking, this isn't about having some complex 2-hour morning routine with ice baths and journaling.
No, and I'm glad you made that distinction. Those are just tools. Allen is talking about the quality of the thought.
Right.
It's about taking 5 minutes, even 1 minute, to ensure your first conscious engagement with the world is calm, charitable, and orderly. It's about setting the tone in your mind before the world sets it for you.
I love that. It puts the control back in your hands. But then inevitably we hit the next hurdle. You start the day right, you're feeling zen, you get to work,
Yeah.
and then you have to do the boring stuff.
Hmm.
The spreadsheets, the dishes, the repetitive tasks.
Ah, yes. The highway mentality hates boring stuff. The highway is all about excitement, glory, the big wins. Alan addresses this in a chapter called Small Tasks and Duties, and he uses a specific word for our attitude toward chores that I absolutely love.
Oh, was it peevishness?
It was peevishness, yes.
That is such a Victorian word.
It really is, and peevishness is that low-level whining we do inside our heads. Why do I have to file this report? I'm overqualified for this. This is beneath me. I should be doing strategy.
Right. Alan calls this a supreme weakness.
It stings a little, doesn't it? But he says something very freeing about it. He argues that the boredom or the irksomeness isn't actually in the task itself.
Right. The irksomeness is in your mind only.
Yes. A stack of paper is just paper. Dirty dishes are just physics, ceramic, and water. The suffering comes from your resistance to the reality of the task.
Because you want to be somewhere else, doing something great.
So you resent the small thing in front of you. And he flips this. He argues that these small tasks aren't obstacles to greatness. They are the training ground for it.
Exactly. That's the key takeaway for this section. You can't have the strength to handle a crisis if you haven't built the strengths to handle a chore.
Mm-hmm.
Alan says, do not long to do great and laudable things. These will do themselves if you do your present task nobly.
Nobly. That's a high bar for washing the car or filling out an expense report.
It is.
But think about what nobly implies. To do a small task nobly means to do it with full attention, without complaining, doing it perfectly, and doing it cheerfully.
That requires focus, patience, and humility.
The exact same traits you need to lead a company or raise a family or navigate a crisis. If you skip the small stuff or do it with a bad attitude, you're trying to lift 300 pounds without ever training with the empty bar.
So the byway here is to stop looking for the exit when things get dull and instead look for the training inside the dullness.
Yes. The crooked path is made straight the moment you accept the task. The stress vanishes because the resistance vanishes. You're just doing the thing.
Yeah.
And there's peace in that.
Okay, dealing with boredom is one thing. But what about actual suffering? What about the heavy stuff? Alan has a section on burden dropping that I found really profound, especially his linguistic deep dive into the word tribulation.
This is probably my favorite insight in the entire book. We all talk about our tribulations, our tough times, our suffering, but Alan points out the origin of that word.
It's agricultural, right?
It is. It comes from the Latin word tribulum. A tribulum was a heavy wooden board studded with sharp pieces of iron or flint. Yeah. It was a threshing sledge. Farmers would drag this heavy spiked board over the wheat to separate the grain from the husks, the chaff.
So tribulation literally means being run over by a threshing machine.
Yeah.
That feels incredibly accurate for how life feels when things are going wrong.
It does. But here's where Alan just flips it on its head. The purpose of the tribulum is not to destroy the wheat.
It's to remove the chaff.
Right. And in this metaphor, we are the wheat, and the chaff represents our character flaws, our selfishness, our fear, our impatience, our ego. Alan argues that the suffering, only hurts as long as the chaff is attached to us.
That is a heavy concept. So he's saying that if I'm suffering, it's because there's still something in me that needs to be threshed off.
That is his claim. The machine stops tearing when the work is done. If you have no chaff, no selfishness, no resistance to reality, no bitterness, the events still happen.
You might lose money, or someone might be rude to you.
Right, but it doesn't cause tribulation. You handle it and move on. The spikes have nothing to catch on.
So the way to stop the pain is to voluntarily get rid of the chaff before the machine does it for you.
Exactly. Which leads us to what he calls hidden sacrifices. If you want to stop the threshing, you have to sacrifice the character flaws that the machine is targeting.
He lists a few specific ones.
Yeah.
And they aren't easy. Sacrificing impatience was the first one.
And just think about how much tribulation impatience causes us. Being stuck in traffic is only painful if you are impatient. If you sacrifice the impatience, if you just accept, I am here, moving at this speed, the suffering evaporates. The traffic is still there, but the burden is gone.
The other one that hit me was sacrificing self-assertion. And I have to push back on this one a bit. I mean, modern advice is all about asserting yourself.
For sure.
Speak your truth. Don't let them silence you. Why does Alan think self-assertion is a burden?
It's a great question. We have to look at what Alan means by self. He's talking about the ego. Why do we usually feel the need to assert ourselves? Usually it's to defend an image, to prove we're right, to force our opinion on someone, or to make sure we get credit.
So it's about defending the ego, not necessarily about setting healthy boundaries.
Precisely. Protecting the ego is exhausting work. It's a heavy burden to carry around, constantly scanning for insults or slights.
Yeah.
Alan says if you sacrifice the need to defend your opinions or prove your importance, you gain a gentle habit of mind that nothing can disturb. You become unoffendable.
Being unoffendable sounds like a superpower, but that leads to the hardest sacrifice of all, sacrificing hatred.
Yeah.
And this connects to that chapter on seeing no evil.
Yes. And this is the danger zone. When people hear see no evil, they think of the three monkeys. They think it means be naive.
Right.
They think it means if you see a crime, you pretend it's not happening.
Which would be dangerous and irresponsible. If I see injustice, I shouldn't just close my eyes.
And Alan isn't advocating for blindness. He's advocating for a shift in interpretation. He says you should cease to view people as evil powers that you're fighting against.
So if someone is hurting me or doing something terrible, how should I view them if not as evil?
You view them as ignorant. Alan operates on the Socratic idea that people only do wrong because they're confused about what is right, or they're in deep pain, or they're blinded by their own chaff.
Okay, but how does that help me? The person is still doing the bad thing.
It changes your reaction. If you see an enemy or an evil monster, your reaction is fear and hatred. And those emotions poison you.
You're the chaff.
They are the chaff. But if you see a confused person acting out of ignorance, your reaction shifts to compassion or pity. You still stop them if you can, but you don't hate them.
So seeing no evil is really a self-defense mechanism for your own peace of mind.
Exactly. He writes, the solid universe is pervious to love. When you stop projecting evil onto the world stops feeling like a battlefield.
You aren't condoning the bad action, but you're refusing to let it turn you into a hateful person.
You refuse to drink the poison just because someone else poured it. It prevents the victim mentality.
It does. And it opens the door to forgiveness. Alan calls forgiveness the doorway to the temple of love. But he points out that you can only forgive if you first sacrifice your vanity.
Vanity. How does vanity stop forgiveness?
Because usually when we can't forgive, it's because our pride is wounded. How dare they treat me like this? Do they know who I am? If you sacrifice the vanity, the need to be treated like a VIP forgiveness becomes just a logical letting go of a hot coal.
We've covered a lot of internal work here, clearing the morning, clearing chores, clearing bitterness. But Alan also talks about the environment we need for this. We need that actual rest house. We need solitude.
He's very strong on this. And remember, he's writing in 1904. No iPhones, no social media, no 24-hour news cycle.
And then he felt the world was too noisy.
Right. He says, he must stoop who seeks to stand.
He must stoop who seeks to stand. That sounds like a riddle. What does that mean in this context?
It refers to humility and self-reliance. To stand alone, you have to be humble enough to let go of the props you lean on.
Ah.
Alan argues that most of our anxiety comes from the fact that we are leaning on unstable things.
We lean on our job title, our bank account, our partner's mood, the number of likes on a post.
Right. And because those things shift and move, we're always wobbling. We're terrified of falling. Alan says you have to find an immovable center within yourself.
You have to learn to be happy in solitude.
I think a lot of people are terrified of solitude because that's when the thoughts come rushing in. That's when you have to face the chaff.
Which is exactly why the byway of solitude is necessary. You have to confront those thoughts. You have to build a structure inside yourself that can stand up without external validation.
So if you can be at peace in an empty room, you are invincible in the world.
It's emotional self-sufficiency, and paradoxically, that makes you a better friend and partner.
So
You aren't extracting validation from others like a parasite. You're bringing your own stability to the table. You become the rest house for others.
we've walked these byways, we've planted the right seeds, accepted the discipline of the mundane, dropped the burden of ego, and learned to stand alone. What's the destination? Alan ends the book talking about happy endings.
This is the payoff. But again, he flips the script. We usually think of a happy ending as a surprise twist. You know, you win the lottery, the hero swoops in.
The movie ending, Deus Ex Machina.
Alan says a happy ending is just math. It's the law of the harvest again.
Go on.
He says, he who begins right and continues right Does not need to desire felicitous results. They are already at hand.
Wait, does not need to. That seems so counterintuitive. We're taught to visualize and manifest and desire what we want.
That's the key. Alan argues that desire is the not. Desire implies you don't have it, and that you're unhappy until you get it.
It creates complexity and anxiety.
Right. Alan says if you live according to these byways, if you're kind, patient, disciplined, and unselfish, happiness isn't something you chase. It is the natural byproduct of your state of being.
It goes back to the tomato plant analogy. You don't have to hope for a tomato. You don't have to manifest a tomato. If you planted the seed and watered it, the tomato is inevitable.
Exactly. The happy ending, a restored friendship, a conquered bad habit, a peaceful home, it's baked into the right beginning. You don't need to stress about the outcome. You just need to tend to the seed.
The ending takes care of itself.
It does.
That is incredibly liberating. It takes the pressure off succeeding and puts the focus entirely on being.
It makes life simple. Alan has a chapter on simplicity. He says life is actually very simple, but we complicate it with our desires for things to be different than they are. If you just do the duty in front of you with a clear mind, life flows.
So let's bring this back to the listener. We've been talking about 1904, but the listener is arguably standing on a hotter, dustier, noisier highway than James Allen ever imagined. What is the first step onto the byway?
The biggest takeaway is that you don't need a new life to find peace. You don't need to move to Bali. You need new eyes. The rest house is portable. It's inside you.
So if we had to give them one homework assignment from James Allen, what would it be?
I would say, test the science of beginnings. Tomorrow morning, just treat your first 10 minutes like you're handling high explosives. Do not let a spark of irritation or worry enter that window. Plant a seed of calm.
And just see what happens.
And just see scientifically if the harvest at 5:00 p.m. is different.
And I'd add the challenge of the hidden sacrifice. Next time you feel the urge to assert yourself, to prove you're right in a casual argument, or defend your ego, just sacrifice it. Just let it go. See if you feel lighter.
You'll be surprised how much energy you save when you stop holding up the heavy shield of your ego.
It's a powerful thought. You are the architect of your own happy ending. It's not about luck. It's about the seeds you plant.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for walking the byways with us today.
A pleasure, as always.
See you in the next deep dive.